so much. This is absolutely humbling. And I'm gonna go off the script a little, which they're probably all immediately worried about. But I have to tell you this story. This morning, my niece, she's 3 years old, was asked by my older brother, what does graduation mean? And Ellie said, it means have fun. So if nothing else, if you fall asleep for the rest of this, Ellie says, have fun. But really, thank you so much. And Laura, welcome back. Thank you for such an inspiring speech. Thank you to the Board of Trustees, President Benninger, the party platform, administration and staff for being steadfast beacons of support. Thank you to the professors who have been indescribably challenging and encouraging, and to my fellow beautiful classmates who have, perhaps above all, been allies and advice givers, both when homework needed to be finished and when it needed to be avoided. But above all, 1,000 thank yous to our biggest fans, our families and loved ones. To the people sitting in the very back row, cameras already up to their eye, in bittersweet anticipation for their loved one's imminent walk across this short stage. Thank you for being our proudest and most loving enthusiasts. We truly could not have done it without your unending and financial support. And a special thanks to my mom and dad, and to those of similar generosity for letting me move back in when the glitter of graduation finally stops falling. 4 very short years ago, we started here, our lanyards hanging stylishly around our necks. An almost tangible desperation to make great friends fast, only appropriate because everyone was desperate to make great friends fast. Luckily, we all picked St. Ben's, a place teeming with energy and encouragement and enthusiasm, a place rich with community, a place we've come to call home, with friends we've come to call family. And not that we need the reminder, but becoming a Benny has proven to be a deeper and more intimate experience than we ever could have imagined. It meant we'd write overwhelming research papers, buy big blank canvases and fill them with color, hypothesize, analyze, and theorize until we couldn't, and then wait patiently until we turned 21, arms folded across our laps, and relax with a beer and a friend. We let the school change us, soak into us, and become a deep and resonating part of why we are who we are. And our senior year has been one of almost exhausting discernment and reflection. What are you doing after you graduate? Where are you going? Where are you living? How big? How fast? How much? Of course, the answer to these questions are varying. Some of us have taken jobs at major corporations or committed to volunteering or teaching for a few years. Some are traveling the world for work or fun or adventure, and others, like me, just really want to reconnect with their parents. Needless to say, we have succeeded, evidenced perfectly by the rows and rows of women ready to graduate with majors and minors and plans and ambitions and dreams and excitement of every kind. Which makes sense. 4 very short years ago, we were warned, you will be successful. We were told we were powerful and competent and capable, that we were activists and athletes, global citizens and local leaders. And somewhere along the way, we started to believe it. But by now we know this is true, and I don't think you asked me to speak today to remind you of our past and future successes. So I won't. Instead, I'll remind you of something we've learned here that, as Laura already pointed out, might not manifest on a resume or in a job interview. A writing professor of mine once described short stories as straight, horizontal lines. They make sense, trotting appropriately toward a chronological finish. There's a beginning at the beginning and an end at the end. Poetry, she said. Poetry was like taking a tiny dot, a tiny moment on that horizontal line and shooting straight upward, perfectly perpendicular, perfectly vertical. And that image has stuck with me, particularly as we prepare to transition out of living here, out of living with friends, out of taking classes, out of being a student here. Because certainly college went in that order. There was a beginning at the beginning, and now here, an end at the end. But until we recognize the poetry of our time here, where we lived vertically, where we wrote our poems, describing our time at CSB is woefully incomplete. So maybe it was staying up all night with your new roommates freshman year. Or maybe it was staying up with your roommates all night last night, hoping against all odds that this day might last longer than 24 hours. Maybe it was the concerts and the crushes and the chapel walks. Maybe it was the realization that you could still withdraw from OChem and there was time to be an English major. Maybe a poem came out of storming the Johnny football field your senior year, only to obediently turn around and wait 2 endless seconds before restorming the Johnny football field your senior year. Maybe it was barefoot walks to the St. Joe Farmers Market, or intramural championships finished with a juvenile and yet so appropriate trip to Dairy Queen. Maybe it was grabbing a Frisbee and a blanket on that first nice day of spring and laying until your cheeks turned pink. Or maybe your poems were written when you left campus, when your feet moved across beaches and cobblestone roads around the world, when you had your first proud conversation in a completely different language, only to Skype your parents immediately and tell them all about it in English. When you rode elephants and trolleys and surfboards, when you realized that this world is so much more than your oyster, when it became your castle, your clouds, your fields of green grass. Or maybe your last 4 years here have turned into a string of poems, a giant symphony of tiny moments. And here we are, in the midst of your poetic crescendo, at the peak of that vertical point on a horizontal line. But fear not, because your time at St. Ben's has only perfected your skills as a poet. Look faithfully forward at the tiny moments you're about to live. When you hang that glass picture in your apartment and it's uniquely and immaculately yours. When you finally meet him or her and life is suddenly filled with companionship. When you encourage your daughters or nieces to go to St. Ben's because you'll realize the only way to explain your experience here is to try desperately and diligently to share it. So that's what I'll do, try to share it. I'd like to give you a poem by a woman named Wendy Cope, to serve as a reminder that our existence is short and fragile, but filled with unlimited love and possibilities for poetry. It's called The Orange, and it goes like this. At lunchtime, I bought a huge orange. The size of it made us all laugh. I peeled it and shared it with Robert and Dave. They got quarters and I had half. And that orange, it made me so happy, as ordinary things often do. Just lately, the shopping, a walk in the park. This is peace and contentment. It's new. The rest of the day was quite easy. I did all the jobs on my list and enjoyed them and had some time over. I love you. I'm glad I exist. To the graduating class of 2011, I love you, and I am so glad that we have existed in this place here together. I would be mistaken if I didn't say thank you again for asking me to speak. I fell in love with this school 4 years ago, like all of you, and I'm honored and humbled to try and articulate that love for all of us today. But the truth is, a year from now, 5 years from now, you might not remember the name of the student who spoke at your graduation, or maybe even what she said. My hope, above all, is that when your children and grandchildren, your future friends and coworkers ask about your college experience, you can say it was a grand poem, perfectly crescendoed, and that you didn't just commence, you reflected. You didn't just commence, you celebrated. You didn't just commence, you stood up, a vertical line, and you danced. Hit it! Live a vertical life, and congratulations.